Tarps Off Sports.
Bang! Jack and Frank are back. We got some good stuff to talk about this week on the Tarps Off UK MMA podcast. We got a possible London invasion happening. What is that, next month, I believe, is when it would go down, or is that in 2 months?
2 months, August
2 months, okay.
14th, if the rumors are true. If the rumors are true,
Darren Till in a fight with Brunson. It could go down in London, possibly. I would have to think that would be the headliner of the card there for a London card with Darren Till versus Brunson. Darren Till, had a pretty up and down run in the UFC so far. Brunson is on one hell of a run right now. We saw him in his last fight versus Kevin Holland really dominate that fight, almost kind of Khabib-esque, the way he just kept putting him down to the ground and beat on him for 5 rounds there.
I mean, I think Khabib's a bit of a...
I'm not putting him up there. Yeah, no way.
It's also the level of competition. Obviously, you saw Marvin Vettori do the same thing to Kevin Holland. But yeah, you can't take anything away from Brunson. He is probably the highest level wrestler at 185 pounds. And he's got those hands as well. You saw him fight against Edmund Shabazian and defeat the young striking prospect. Yeah, he's a good fighter, but so is Till. I mean, I'm a UK guy. I'm always going to back my boy. But he hasn't had the chance to shine yet at middleweight. And he really needs a showcase performance where he can, put a stamp on that division and get that title fight. The UFC want to book Till versus Adesanya. They want that.
Of course they do.
Hey, I wanted Till and Adesanya as coaches for Tough 29.
That would have been fun. That would have been more fun than what we ended up getting. But if you look at these two guys, if Brunson gets a win, that's either 5 or 6 in a row for him. You have to start thinking about booking him into this title picture and giving him that top 5 opponent. And then on the flip side, the way Darren Till works the microphone, the way he sells fights, if he gets a win here, you got to think the UFC is going to want to book him for that dollars and cents into one of these big time fights. I think this is a huge match with possible title implications on here. Not an immediate shot at the title for the winner, but possibly if it's Till. But definitely will get one of these two guys into the mix.
Yeah, definitely. They're both on the fringes of the top 5 on the 6th and 5th, something like that. It's real tight. But also the next week, we've also got, I think it's next week, in August, been announced, Cannonier and Costa are headlining another event. So, right now, middleweight is that's some top tier matchmaking they've done. You've obviously got Adesanya Vettori, Whitaker waiting in the wings, probably going to fight in September against the winner of that. And then you've already got the rest of the top 4 matched up. So by the time Whitaker and I presume Adesanya is going to beat Vettori again, but by the time they resolve their fight, we've already got a next contender waiting for us. I think if Brunson wins, that's a tough sell, putting him against the next title holder, because you saw how Adesanya just demolished him in 1 round. That's one of my favorite Adesanya performances. Yeah, it gets him with the question mark kick, which is one of my personal favorite techniques. It's so slick. But yeah, I think if Till wins, they're probably going to stick him right at the forefront.
And it's tough to give Brunson a rematch with Whitaker too, because another first round KO loss to Whitaker there. So it is a bit of a, but that was so long ago at this point, the loss to Whitaker. I wouldn't mind them running that one back because it's been a while. But I mean, you look at some other stars that could possibly be on a card if it does go to London. And we have a guy in Paddy the Baddy Pimblett who has yet to make his UFC debut. He's already a superstar over there. I think you can speak to that. He's becoming a big name in the United States. I mean, the more hardcore fans have known about Paddy Pimblett for a very long time. Because Conor McGregor made that mark in the UFC, and Paddy Pimblett really started tearing it up in Cage Warriors shortly after. So everybody kind of took their attention to Paddy Pimblett and Cage Warriors for a bit. That could be maybe a possible co-main event even, Frank?
Maybe. I don't think they will though. I think it'll probably be more like maybe a main card open, maybe featured prelim. Just to like you need that like UFC win under your belt first to show you that you're at that level, and you know you compete against UFC caliber competition. Because I said this before, but you got to look at Pimblett's last opponent, Davide Martinez. He is not a name. He hasn't fought anyone, and he hasn't fought for any good promotions. So yeah, I think he's got to get an established win, but put him in a spot where he's going to get a lot of views. Yeah, like I say, main prelim or maybe the main card opener, something like that. But if they get crowds in there, which it's possible. We had fans the recent Leicester versus Chelsea football match over here, so it's a possibility there might be maybe some fans at least. The pop that Paddy Pimblett will get when he walks out. If you go back and watch his old Cage Warriors stuff,
the entrance song is undefeated. it's the best. Where's your head at? I love it. But 100%. I do think Paddy Pimblett will make his debut at 145. I can't see him making his debut at lightweight. I know he's calling out every single person on Twitter, but that's just what Paddy Pimblett does. Get used to it. It's kind of like Conor McGregor. I think seriously he does start at featherweight for a while. I think he'll try to make a title run at featherweight, which could take a couple years. I'm not sure Paddy is quite as hyped up and as good as I want him to be quite yet, but he's a kid on the rise. He has that flying triangle that obviously excites the fans. He can finish you. Yeah, 2 flying triangles. He can finish you by knockout or submission. He's very well-rounded. Paddy Pimblett could be a star.
No doubt at all.
And I believe his training partner is targeted for that card as well, Molly Mccann.
Yeah, Meatball Molly. She's another Cage Warriors fighter who came to the UFC a few years ago. She's never quite picked it up, but she's such a great personality. You see some of Cage Warriors used to do some interviews with Molly and Paddy together, and I couldn't recommend more going back and watching them. The sort of banter and the scouse just camaraderie as well, because they're teammates, is absolutely hilarious. And she's a fun fighter. Like, she gets in scraps. I'm trying to think of someone to compare her to, but I don't know. She just will turn a clean fight into a scrappy fight. She's got some nice sort of Muay Thai, and yeah, she's fun. She just needs to get over that sort of, it's always like 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step backward. And she never
Charles Oliveira kind of had that, and then he went on that run. So, that's how his career started. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And now look at him. He's the lightweight champion of the world. But those English fighters are just better on the mic than anybody else. But to move to another country here, which is Brazil, and Charles Oliveira, we've been hearing for the last, 5 years that Brazil is on the decline. Fighters like Anderson Silva are no longer at the top of their game. Anderson Silva actually just retiring from MMA this week. But now we have 3 Brazilian champions. We have Amanda Nunes, who's the most dominant woman, I think, in the history of the sport. I'm going to go out and say that right there for free 99. And then Oliveira and Figgy are now champions as well. Brazil, their stock is going back up. I think their stock never should have been down. I mean, they've got so many guys. If you look through the UFC rankings, there's Brazilian fighters that are on the up and up that are going to be competing. Brazil just had a little lull. I don't think they ever left.
Yeah, it was just a case of their fighters at the top getting slightly older. Yeah, Jose Aldo with the knockout to McGregor and all that, which absolutely sucked. Anderson Silva, like you say. And yeah, a few more in the mix, sort of going out of their prime, whilst at the same time you had a bunch of youngsters making their way up, but not quite in that sort of top 10 question yet. And now suddenly they've arrived, those guys outside the top 10. Obviously, yeah, you mentioned Figgy and Du Bronx, Chucky Olives, my boy.
Chucky Olives. He did it. He did it to Michael Chandler. I got to give him his props. I said I would recognize him as real if he got the win. I do recognize him as real, although I do fear that he won't hold the title very long.
The thing is, I genuinely think like my mentality going into this fight, I was like, I want Oliveira to win, but I think Chandler's got that route to victory. I said this last week. It's there. And I think I'm probably going to be saying that with every single Oliveira fight that's going to go. He can win. He can probably beat, comfortably. He could easily beat anyone in that top 5, but they could all easily beat him. It's just the way that he fights. That
I mean, even in that fight, let's talk about it. Michael Chandler, I believe, on 2 judges' scorecards after that first round, whether you like it or not, and the judging was terrible all night, but 2 judges gave Chandler a 10-8 round in round 1. So Oliveira was down 2 rounds to none after the first round already, and then goes and gets the knockout.
Yeah. It was incredible. Like, I don't know. I can see the argument to be made for a 10-8 with 2 sort of round-defining moments. He was very close to being finished, the second knockdown. Dan Mergliotto was honestly, I think he was like probably 2 or 3 punches away from calling it. And then there was the guillotine as well, which was, I thought that was it. I was like, no.
I thought that was it too.
The jiu-jitsu guys getting subbed. Yeah, it was just an incredible fight. 2 pressure fighters going at it. It's up there with one of the most sort of exhilarating title fights I've seen in a long time.
So now we kind of have to take a step back and look at this lightweight picture because it's starting to get a little more clear, but I would say it's still far from clear. So now you have Chucky Olives, who has destroyed Chandler. He's out of there for now. I mean, and it's going to take 2 fights probably for Chandler to get back into that mix just because this lightweight division is so deep. So now you have Justin Gaethje, who's been sitting on the sidelines. Does he get the title shot, or does it go to the winner of McGregor versus Poirier? And I almost feel like this is kind of a trick question because if Poirier wins versus McGregor, there's really no question. It's got to be Poirier, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it should have been Poirier from the start. Everyone knows that. But he went searching money, and you can't really blame him for going for that. And yeah, to be honest, I mean, what is Poirier ranked first? Lightweight.
He is ranked first, yes. And he was ranked first going into that fight the other night too. He was ranked, I believe, ahead of Oliveira and Chandler.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, he was first in line, but he chose to pass on it.
He chose red panty night.
Exactly, he chose red panty night. But if McGregor beats the number 1 guy, I can't really begrudge him the title. I'm not a huge McGregor fan, but like, you beat the number 1 guy, you deserve a title shot, I think.
But the only thing is, will McGregor take the title shot, or will he want to fight Makayev just because he's related to Khabib or friends with Khabib or whatever? I mean, you never know what McGregor's going to do. So it's so hard to say, like, oh, well, if McGregor wins, he's going to be fighting for the title, because who knows? He could be calling out Nate Diaz after he wins. So that's why I still put Gaethje in there. But, like, who does Gaethje fight next if you are going to give the winner of McGregor Poirier to Oliveira? Does Michael Chandler now fight Justin Gaethje next?
That's what I would go for personally. I love that fight.
And that's a dream fight of mine back when, I mean, Gaethje was at World Series of Fighting and Michael Chandler was at Bellator.
Yeah, it's a great fight. 2 kind of semi-similar, but also then, I guess, semi-similar skill sets utilized in very different ways.
Exactly.
But I reckon Gaethje wins that via like leg kick TKO. Because did you see how like far Chandler's leg went as soon as Oliveira kicked it? He fell over, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. In Gaethje, I do give the advantage to Gaethje standing up. But in that fight, does Michael Chandler know that and go right for the takedown? Because if there's anybody that can take down Gaethje, I would say it would be Michael Chandler. So it's tough to call. I mean, it's fighting. It can go either way. It's so hard because you never know what their game plans are going to be, what's going to happen on fight night. It's the reason why they have the fights. It's a reason why gambling on this sport is so goddamn difficult.
That's why your parlay bet for the weekend.
Yeah, my parlay. I went 0 for 3 on a parlay that I had been more confident on some of the parlays I've cashed. Like, you never know what's going to happen in this sport.
100%. Yeah. No, I didn't risk it. I went the main event to finish like not a decision, and then Dariush and Ferguson to go to decision, and then also Edson Barbosa to finish Shane Burgos. So yeah, that went nicely for me.
I just took the under in the Barbosa-Burgos fight because I knew someone was getting knocked out. I didn't know who was going to win, and hey, we were both right, I guess, on that one. But let's go back to Dariush. So he now beats Tony Ferguson. I know everyone's going to say, oh, well, it's not the same Tony Ferguson, all that. Like we always love to do when somebody picks up a great achievement, we find a way to diminish it. But does Dariush now, is he one win away from him possibly getting a title shot? Who does Dariush fight next, and how big is his stock after beating Tony Ferguson?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Like, I don't know, to be honest. He said he wants to take a bit of time out, so there could be some time for like the top 5 to all go through one fight, and the whole landscape could change by then. Though I'd love to see, I was going to say RDA, but I think they're teammates, so that might not come about, or at least friends. Maybe Dan
we know
Hooker?
he's friends with. Yes, Dan Hooker was the name I was thinking of, because obviously we know he's friends with Justin Gaethje. They're like best friends. There's no way that fight's going down. So Dan Hooker seems to be a great guy for Dariush to fight next. And I think that would be super exciting. I would love that fight. And I don't know who's taking that one. I don't think we saw the best Dan Hooker, and I think his stock has plummeted, but I think it's plummeted too far after his loss to Michael Chandler. I think he's a lot better than people are giving him credit for right at this moment, and I think he's going to surprise some people. But if he does get Dariush in his next fight, that is no easy task.
No, that's rough. Dan Hooker is one of my favorite fighters, just full stop. I just love the way he fights. I love his sort of mentality that he takes to each fight. And he's just, he sort of encapsulates that, it's like Kiwi fighter spirit. And I just find him a really interesting figure in this sort of martial arts.
And I loved
industry.
I love Dariush coming out to that slow song and like turning like a slow romantic song into an absolute pump up jam song. Dariush with the walkout of the night, in my opinion. People are giving it to Ferguson, but I think Dariush won that fight, and I think he won the battle of the walkouts. Although I do feel for Tony Ferguson. Another loss. All his losses have come to the top elite fighters. I know people love to say Tony's overrated, and they go back to like 2009 on his record to try to prove it to you. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But I do feel for Tony Ferguson. I don't think he should fight elite top guys anymore. I didn't think he was a top 10 fighter going into this fight. I thought that was very generous of the UFC to keep him in there. But I mean, he's such an exciting fighter. I would like to see him have one more like send-off fight versus a lower ranked guy and send Tony Ferguson off into the sunset on a victory.
All right, how's this then? Because I think if he does remain in the rankings, because he still only lost to the number 9 guy, he might fall to like outside the top 10. If they want to still give him a ranked opponent and a fight that's going to be big, why not Paul Felder? They're both
Paul Felder would be a great choice.
Like
that's a perfect fight.
That's what I think. Felder's coming off a loss, and they're both definitely like veterans of the sport and in the twilight of their career. And Felder will probably strike with him as well. The two will have like a, Felder's not really a specialist. He's a well-rounded fighter, kind of similar to Ferguson, except he doesn't have the sort of unorthodox stuff that Ferguson traditionally uses.
And the toughness. How tough is Tony Ferguson for eating that leg lock? You almost. I felt like I heard his knee pop. Dariush said he heard his knee pop.
Yeah.
And he just kept going. Like that man he's the toughest man in UFC history, in my opinion. He might not be the best fighter, but he's got to be up there for toughest. And speaking of two tough fighters, what about Barboza and Burgos? Fight of the night. Can you remember the last time you saw a guy eat a shot that wasn't a body shot and have a delayed reaction like Burgos did when Barboza caught him?
No, I can't at all. That was it was bizarre. As far as I can remember, I haven't seen anything like it. It's just like it was so delayed, and he steps forwards and just his face doesn't even change. That's the thing. Like DC on the commentary was like, "Watch his eyes, watch his eyes." No, there was no change. He just sort of literally his face was like a picture, and he just slowly falls back into the.
Yeah,
it was bizarre.
Dana White looked very concerned. I saw a picture after of Dana White standing up. He looked worried, but luckily I believe Burgos is okay. And he'll be right back. I mean, losing to Barboza, I think Barboza is a very underrated fighter. Just the knockout power is unreal. And the knockout power of Shane Burgos is unreal too. Both guys are just such tough motherfuckers that both of them were hitting each other with shots that would have knocked most guys out. I mean, that had fight of the night written all over it before it even... they stepped into the cage, and then it did not disappoint.
100%. Tell you what, I wouldn't mind seeing Burgos move up to 155. He's literally, I think the stat is he's the tallest fighter in his division. He definitely cuts down a lot of weight, and if he's already extremely durable at featherweight, imagine how durable he's going to be without cutting, without water. Without cutting weight and whatnot. Like I feel like that could be, if not right now, definitely a solid option for him in the future. Imagine absolutely. Burgos versus Gaethje. Oh,
that would be a thriller. I would love to see that fight. And also, I guess I didn't even put it on the agenda here. I don't know how I forgot, but we got to talk about your boy Grundy. What happened?
I don't know. At People's Main Event, I was billing it. Yeah, I don't know. Grundy, he's a good fighter. He's like super high level wrestler. One of the few that we've got coming from the UK, which is why I was so excited for it. And Lando Venata cutting down from lightweight to featherweight. I thought Grundy was going to have the run of it, throw him around. Maybe like Venata would defend early on, but no, Venata's takedown defense was exceptional. I hope it was Venata's takedown defense was exceptional, not that Grundy's wrestling was below par. I don't know.
Did you see a judge had Grundy 30-27 victorious in that fight? The judging. Well, it's always happens when it's in Texas. This is not the first time we've seen this in Texas. It probably won't be the last. Hopefully it will be. But I mean, what a great card. I've seen some people say that UFC 262 card was boring. I don't know. Maybe you just don't like mixed martial arts, because I just don't know a way you could say that was boring. And that was the second event we at Tarps Off Sports covered that day. The first one was ONE Championship. And to be honest, every single time I watch a product from ONE Championship, the production value just continues to blow me away. The pace of the card moves so quickly. One fight ends, and then they show you this 2-minute like hype up video for the next fight that looks like it was directed in Hollywood. It looks like a goddamn movie. It's so good. It hypes you up for the fight. The card was done in like 2.5 hours. It was just unreal. But we didn't go without our controversy in judging there either. By-win versus Ritu Fogat, sorry. That was a very controversial decision. Mancuso was already putting the win in Fogat, and I was like, well, be careful. ONE does not have the same judging criteria as the UFC, and I saw it as an extremely close fight. And of course, then By-win gets the decision victory. All of Twitter explodes. Everybody's mad. But if that was in the UFC, Fogat wins that 30-27. In ONE, I thought it was 50-50. I still would have given it to Fogat, but wrestling doesn't really get you anywhere in ONE. It's all about that striking. It's all about that damage. And that's what some people really like about ONE. You don't see Khabib winning by decision every time. I bet you Khabib would have lost some of those fights if he was fighting over in ONE championship, because they really like to see the action. Maybe not when he's pounding on their face when he gets on top of them, but you can't just wrestle someone and keep them there.
Yeah, I agree. I gave it to Fogat, is it her name?
Yep.
Yeah, I gave it to her as well. But I was thinking as it was getting to the judges, like the amount of shots that Win was landing throughout the fight, even though it was almost like in selected like pockets, like small bursts, her significant strike count, to be honest, I can't remember the stats, but I feel like it must have been higher, because most of Fogat's shots were coming from the ground, the classic body head, sort of tapping strikes that build up like a total strike count but aren't doing too much damage. When Win was on the feet, she was letting it go. So I don't know. I do feel like Fogat will feel like she's lost that one a bit. Like, the judges have stolen it from her.
Oh, and rightfully so. I mean, it's always going to feel that way in such a close fight too.
Yeah.
But Indian wrestling, I mean, her wrestling was dominant, and we saw another dominant Indian wrestler in the main event where India claims their first MMA championship, much to the dismay of Chris Mancuso, who will argue that Arjan Bueller is born in Canada and he represented Canada at the Olympics. But I mean, he carries that mace to the cage, and apparently that is a symbol of like that the wrestling god of India or whatever uses as his weapon of choice. So, I mean, India was fully represented in this card, and it did not disappoint as they walk away with the heavyweight championship of the world. Arjan Bueller, he knocked out Vera, which was so shocking to me. And it looks like Vera may have just run out of gas or been hurt by a strike. I don't know. What's next for Arjan Bueller, in your opinion? I know we called out Ji Wong Kang, and then Renier de Ritter won the middleweight belt. He won the light heavyweight belt. Now he wants to go to heavyweight. I personally think Bueller is too big and too good of a ground game for Renier de Ritter to challenge him. So I'd much rather see Ji Wong Kang. I think Vera versus de Ritter would have been a much more interesting fight, maybe at heavyweight. I think Bueller is too much for him.
Yeah, I agree. At least I think I agree. I'd like to see the Ritter defend his light heavyweight title a few times, see him like get used to that sort of, walking around at that body weight, and just establish it. Don't go straight into heavyweight without even defending your other titles. He is good though. He is very good. But yeah, I agree in that I feel like Buller's just his sheer size combined with his wrestling credentials probably will be too much. But I tell you what, Vera really disappointed me in this fight. I thought, well, I said last week on the show, he's not as young as he has as he used to be, obviously. But he's 43 now, and he's been inactive for a few years, and I think that really showed. Not only in the fact that he fatigued, but even just standing there in the ring, like he was so stationary. And I know the commentary were going over it a bit, saying that he's not moving to side, but even his stance, I don't know. And then you got constant movement coming from Bueller, who's sort of like moving his hands around, parrying, keeping Vera guessing. Yeah, I just thought it was a dominant display, but a disappointing one from Vera.
And also, I love the people that say like he's not a real champion because he won it in ONE and not in the UFC, and that he is a UFC reject. He was 3-1 in the UFC and left the UFC to go and get paid more money. It was not because he couldn't make it in the UFC. He was 3-1, ladies and gentlemen. So, I mean, Brendan Vera lost to a real champion, a great fighter. However, I don't know if Brendan Vera's days at the top are over. I would like to see him fight one more time because, like you mentioned, Frank, he did have that long layoff. Maybe he comes back and he looks sharper. Maybe he needed to get the ring rust off. But I mean, I'm not ready to say he's done yet, but I'll say I'm nervous.
I'm ready to say he's done. I just thought he looked so static and just uninspired in that fight. And he's a fighter that I've really enjoyed watching in the past. And I just feel like none of what made him great was there in that fight last Saturday. So I don't know. Yeah, stick him against like Cirilli or someone like that. And,
yeah, Father Time is undefeated. I like to see him fight the Hammer. That would be a fun fight. But also, we had another fun fight on that card. I know it's not MMA, but I love that ONE mixes these fights in, and that they gave us a beautiful Muay Thai fight with Taiwan Chai versus Clancy. And you see this kid, Taiwan Chai, make his way out to the cage. He's 21 years old. He's fought about 150 times. And he looked like a goddamn Mortal Kombat character. In the first round, he hits Clancy with a head kick. Clancy's face is immediately covered in blood. And then he throws the quickest head kick I've ever seen to get the knockout on him. Like, how does someone beat that kid? And honestly, if there's a really good matchup out there for him, how do I set my notification so I don't miss that one? I don't want to miss another Taiwan Chai fight ever again. If that kid's fighting, I'm watching.
He was electric. Yeah, you hyped him up quite a lot last week. I'd never even heard of the kid before, but
he was way better than I hyped him up, and he went way above and beyond. I want him to fight Sub-Zero next in Mortal Kombat. I don't even think there's a human on Earth I want him to fight next. He should be fighting in the Mortal Kombat games. I mean, that kid is electric. And speaking of someone that could fight in like the Mortal Kombat games, we have Bellator this week, and we've got Chris Cyborg versus Leslie Smith. Do you see any way, shape, or form Cyborg loses that fight?
No, not at all.
I don't either.
You know, she's the best outside Nunes in that sort of weight category. And I don't think anyone out there, apart from Nunes, I mean, maybe Kayla Harrison, she got down. Even then, I think Cyborg will give Kayla Harrison a really tough time. But yeah, I don't think anyone in Bellator comes close to her, to be honest. Is Kat Zingano in there at the moment? But yeah, I don't think there's anyone who
I don't even think that's a shot at Bellator. That's just how good Cyborg is.
Yeah, 100%. UFC as well, apart from Nunes. I mean, there is somewhat of a lack of talent in the sort of 145-pound women's just MMA full stop. There is just less talent in there. But no, Cyborg is above and beyond everyone bar Nunes.
Fair enough. And then we have a rematch in Darian Caldwell versus Leandro Hego. Is that how that is pronounced? I'm sorry if I
believe so. Yeah.
So that'll be a rematch. I mean, those two guys. That's going to have title implications. I mean, one guy's going to be in the picture. One guy's going to get kicked out of the title picture. That should be a really good fight. I believe Caldwell took it the first time around. And I think he'll take this one again. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Caldwell. He's got a really good submission game in there, but also some sort of funky striking. I'm a big fan of him. I haven't watched enough of his opponent, to be honest, but I am a big fan of Caldwell.
Yeah, so that should be a pretty good fight with title implications on the line. And then we have another a fight that's gonna knock somebody out of the top prospect almost status here. We have Austin Vanderford, who's undefeated, versus 9-1 Fabian Edwards. We all know his brother, Leon Edwards. How do you feel about that fight? Are you a big Fabian Edwards guy?
I am, yeah. I'm anyone from Team Renegade, that gym where both the Edwards brothers, you've also got like Jai Herbert and a few other guys over there. I love that gym. I love the people there. I love the sort of mentality they bring into fights. And yeah, I think Fabian is a great fighter. Austin Vanderford is good. He's like got some good grappling and like a decent right hand. But I think Edwards is the better fighter. He should have won his last fight. very sort of controversial split decision loss, the first loss of his career. And I've spoken to him since, and I know he's not happy about that loss, and he, it sort of lit a fire in him. So I've definitely got Edwards winning this fight, and it should be a good one. I know he's calling for like a second round KO, and Vanderford's going out there to try sort of put his name on the map, beat someone big, and that is Fabian Edwards.
I just love that this fight is basically marketed as Leon Edwards' brother versus Paige Van Zant's boyfriend. Like, let's go! Like, what a fight right there.
Yeah. It's awful, but it's also great.
It's awful and awesome. It is MMA. It is the world we live in. It is Paige Van Zant's boyfriend versus Leon Edwards' brother. But it is what it is. Should be an awesome fight. Together, their records are 19-1 if you combined them. So that's absolute electricity right there. And then we have an electric fight for me. One of my boys, Rob Font, is taking on Cody Garbrandt at UFC Vegas 27. I got Rob Font in this, obviously. I mean, Boston guy right there, New England cartel. But Cody Garbrandt's no joke. I mean, he did have 3 consecutive losses. He was able to snap that streak in his last fight and pick up a win. So he's looking to stay on the right foot. But the UFC did not do him any favors in giving him an absolute top contender killer in Rob Font.
Yeah, it's a great matchup, to be honest. From a neutral perspective, which is where I'm standing, it's just going to be a war in there. Garbrandt's hands are great, of course. We all know that. And you saw that knockout of Rafael Sansao, which was just so slick, like something out of a movie. But yeah, Rob Font has looked on fire lately. Was it the win against Marlon Moraes most recently? Was that his last win?
I think that was his last fight, I believe.
Yeah, that's a big win against, a really high level opponent. So I don't know how it's going to go. I would not be surprised if they just sort of met in the middle of the octagon and duked it out. And I don't know. Garbrandt's got that tendency to like just sort of fire from the hip sometimes, which has been to his detriment more than once. And Font's quite a good sort of, not sniper, but he picks his shots well. Something I really like about him. It's electric. I actually love that fight. It's great matchmaking.
Yeah, he did TKO Marlon Moraes his last fight. Also, Rob Font can win by decision. It seems to almost be what he more aims for, but if he does get that opportunity, he will try to finish you. But he's a very smart fighter. I think he picks this one up against Cody Garbrandt. But regardless of who wins this, it's such a tough title picture in that division. I mean, you have Sandhagen, which, I mean, if you were to put Font versus Sandhagen or Garbrandt versus Sandhagen, I'm probably taking Sandhagen versus both of those guys.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of Sandhagen. I think he's absolutely incredible.
You've got Sterling, who's been amazing. Obviously, he's the champion right now, but like, who's the champion really? I kind of say it's Peter Yan. I mean, we saw how or TJ Dillashaw's in the mix too. Like, it's crazy here. I mean, this division is so good. Where does TJ Dillashaw fit? Because obviously he's not eligible to be in the rankings. But where would you put him in this mix with Sterling champion, Yan 1, Sandhagen 2, Font 3, and Garbrandt 4?
Well, obviously he had, he was going to fight Sandhagen, wasn't he? But the fight got postponed. I think it's still going to happen. So that would definitely sort of stick him in there.
Probably right at 3, and then Font 4, Garbrandt 5. It's probably how I would do it.
Well, he beat Garbrandt twice and is a former champion. So was it twice or just the once? I don't know. Maybe even ahead of Garbrandt.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I have Dillashaw at 3, Rob Font at 4, Garbrandt at 5. So I would put Dillashaw right in there at 3, just behind Sandhagen, because Sandhagen's been an absolute monster as of late. You can't put him in front of him because he's been active, but they're going to fight. So one guy's going to remain, one guy's going to get knocked back to the back of the line. So that's some really exciting stuff too. That division is really picking up. Bantamweight, lightweight division, really fun divisions to watch right now in the UFC. We also have a very good women's fight there. Carla Esparza is back in action, and she's got some title implications in her fight. What do you think about that matchup?
Sorry.
All good.
Just unplug my microphone. My bad. Carla Esparza against, how do you say her opponent's name, Jack?
Janan?
Xiaonan, I think. Yeah, I think that's
right.
I
was so close. Give me a point.
1 point. 1 point. It's not a win. That's a nice little fight. It's not like, I don't know, not going to be a sort of barn burner. It's not going to be Oliveira versus Chandler sort of fight, but it's an interesting one. Carlos Esparza has been around for a while now. Did she hold the belt, or at the very least she got a title shot at one point? Good little sort of scrappy fighter with a nice, well-rounded game, some nice submissions in there. Whereas Yan Xiaonan has, which is one of this sort of new rising surge of Chinese prospects that have just broken into the UFC as of late. Obviously, you've got Wei Li Zhang at the top, but then even in the men's divisions, you've got Sumadaji at flyweight, you've got Li Jingliang welterweight. There's a bunch of them just suddenly broken into the UFC, and can you imagine? Even if she wins this, Xiaonan this is, and doesn't get a title shot next, because who knows what's going to happen? Maybe Joanna gets it or something. But Zhang versus Xiaonan in China, in front of like a full crowd, that would be wild.
Well, when you look at the top 5 rankings in the women's strawweight division, you realize how good this division really is. You got Zhang Weili as the number 1 contender. You got Joanna Jędrzejczyk at number 2, Xiaonan at 3, Esparza 4, and Mackenzie Dern wraps it up at number 5 there. It's a really, really good strawweight division there.
Yeah. Oh, Mackenzie Dern as well. She's a threat to anyone she fights. That division's stacked. Like, it's not long since people were sort of discrediting women's MMA full stop and just saying, what's the point? They're all so much lower down than the men's, whatever. But now these are like legit fighters who, skill for skill, that they could be easily as good as some of the men's divisions.
We've seen explosive knockouts in most of the women's title fights we've seen recently. I mean, that Wei Li Zhang versus Rose Namajunas fight was absolutely crazy. Shevchenko's putting everybody in her path away. Amanda Nunes could probably put some of the men in this UFC division away. I mean, the power of the women's division right now is crazy. I don't see how you could possibly sleep on them.
No, 100%. And I mean, I can't even predict where it's going to go as well. It's not even, I guess, like maybe at 145 pounds, you do have your sort of like breakaway champions where, your Nunes's, your Chris Cyborgs. But down there, what's that, strawweight?
Yep.
The talent level is high, but it's not even like there's just like 2 people up there who are better than everyone else, and those 2 will probably fight it out. Whoever loses will go crushing cans and make their way back to the title. No, they're all like legitimate contenders, and it's not easy to predict how it's going to go. Like, will Rose still have the belt in a year or so? I have no idea.
No, and honestly, I would say that any of the top 7 fighters, if you count the champion, could win the belt. In Namajunas, Zhang, Jędrzejczyk, Xiaonan, Esparza, Dern, and Rodriguez. I mean, those are all killers there. I'm leaving Nina Nunes just outside of that. I think she could be a champion conversation. We saw what Mackenzie Dern did in that fight. So that's the only one I'm leaving out, but she's still an extremely talented fighter. And then you have Claudia Gadea there, Michelle Watterson, Tisha Torres. The strawweight division is stacked. In fun fighters in Ribas and Hill to close out the top 12 there. I mean, I love the women's strawweight division. I think it's super exciting to watch. I think that would be a great place for the UFC if they wanted to have a Grand Prix style tournament. That would be the division to do it in right there.
Yeah, I agree, but they won't do it.
No,
You know,
they'll
the
never
UFC,
do it.
they hate the tournaments. But one thing they could do, there is some talk about women's atomweight. What are your thoughts on that? Like, you know, Michelle Waterson could definitely fight there. Luma Lukbumi, she's like a great fight, like Thai fighter. She could definitely fight there.
You got one championship doing an atomweight Grand Prix. I'm super excited for that. The atomweight fights in women's MMA just tend to be better. I was talking to someone actually the other day about this, and they were clamoring for the UFC to get an atomweight fight because they watch one championship just for those fights because they love women's MMA, and that's the best division for the most exciting fights. I'd love to see the UFC hop on that train and do it. But if you want to see that awesome action, you also can go over to ONE. They're going to be starting up their Grand Prix. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, B Win is on that tournament. I think that's what that
I
fight
think
against.
since she got that win, she'll be
Yeah.
on there. I don't know if that's been made official yet. But yeah, it's a Grand Prix tournament. I believe the winner gets to fight Angela Lee. I don't know if that's gets to fight or has to fight because she's very scary, just like her brother Christian Lee. That'll be exciting. I mean, those fights are just spectacular. I love the what is it, atomweight division, I believe is how you pronounce it. And then we got to end the show talking about one more Brit. You didn't get him last week. You got robbed of your Brit on the main card of UFC 262, but it looks like we're going to get him. We're going to get him this week. So what do you think about your boy Jack?
Jack. Oh, what, Jack Manson?
Yes.
He's not a Brit. He's a Swede.
Oh, he's a Swede.
Yeah, but that's cool. I'm part Scandinavian, so I've always got love for my boys over there in the
Oh,
north.
okay. My bad. I mixed it up there.
Nah, Jack Manson, yeah, he's a great fighter as well against Edmund Shabazian, who is a weird one. Like, he was one of the big prospects, and then picked up his first ever loss against Derek Brunson, which we mentioned earlier. Shabazian, training partner with Ronda Rousey, trains under Edmund Tarverdyan, which isn't a great look from Tarverdyan's past stuff with Rousey, but he's a good fighter. But yeah, I'm a big Jack Manson fan. He went 5 rounds with Marvin Vittori, showed off his sort of striking, and we all know his submission, like jiu-jitsu skills. He heel hooked, or was it an ankle lock against Kelvin Gastelum. It's a great fight. Obviously, it was meant to be on the UFC 262, been pushed to this card, probably the co-main, I guess. And it's a banger. You know, we were saying before how all the middleweight matchups are, you know, it's some great matchmaking by the UFC. This is another one that could, like, a win here will push you into, like, just outside that top 5, I imagine. And hell, a win, you know, win here and then another win after this could well be a title shot.
I mean, you look at the past couple opponents for Hermanson. He lost to Vittori, but that was by decision. He beat Gastelum. He lost to Cannonier, and then he beat Jacare. I mean, his losses are to spectacular guys, and so are his wins. So it's like we're gonna see what we got in him, and he's got a very difficult 11-1 opponent, a rising prospect, coming off of his first ever loss. So we'll see how he bounces back because he's gonna be hungrier than ever. Jack Hermanson has his hands full, but I still think he comes out with the victory here.
Yeah. I think I lean towards Jack just because of experience. I mean, we need to see Shabazian tested a bit more, but it's a really good fight and not one that's easy to call at all. So yeah, another great piece of matchmaking, but. Yeah,
and he is only 23 years old. So he's a very young prospect. If he loses this fight, it doesn't really mean much for his future. I mean, he's gonna be up there in the conversation at some point, I would imagine. If he's doing this well at just 23 years old, the possibilities are endless. But I think that's about all the time we have. You want to let the people know where to find you, Frank?
Yes, you can all find me on Twitter, Bernarda Boy. That's Bernarda BOI. All sorts of UFC, MMA content on there. Got interviews, articles, and a lot of stuff with Tarps Off. a lot of stuff with writing about previews for ONE and all that. A lot of fun. And then check me out on Instagram as well at Frank Bernardo.
Bang. And you can find me at Jack Gottsell, JackGottsell. Always on the Tarps Off sports streams, watch parties, everything. Try to blog when I can. Having the time of my life covering MMA with Frank. We out, though.